Hello everyone, I'm Sheriff Wayne Ivey and you're on scene with the Brevard County Sheriff's Office. Like each of you, my heart sinks each time I see in the news where a school was the chosen venue for an evil or deranged individual who decided to target children or educators in what should be the safest environment imaginable. As a father, lifelong law enforcement officer, citizen, and the Sheriff of Brevard County, I am absolutely convinced that we must take action right now to do everything possible to stop the next school shooting from happening, regardless if its intended target is a school in Brevard or elsewhere in the world. To those who want to use this most recent tragedy for anything other than finding a solution to protect our children, I say stop it. This is not about politics, the Second Amendment, or automatic weapons. This is about protecting our children and our educators today. It's about implementing strategies that will stop an active shooter today, not 2 years from now. In fact, the conversation should be about nothing more or less than saving our children's lives right now. I promise you, there will never be a more important conversation in our country. I mean, think about it for a moment. These evil scenarios are playing out all over our country, and we are so busy arguing with each other about our personal and political idealism and agendas that we can't stop for 1 minute and consider that school shootings and massacres have been occurring in our country since July of 1764, and we haven't done a single thing differently to stop them. That's right, I said 1764 when 4 men entered a province of Pennsylvania schoolhouse and killed the schoolmaster and 9 children. 1764, that's exactly 27 years before the Second Amendment was ever ratified and 121 years before the first semi-automatic rifle was ever invented. So this is not about political agendas or positions on gun control. It's about finding an immediate and realistic solution to stopping people with evil intentions who want to harm our children. While a quick study of history will show just how far back school shootings and massacres have taken place in our country, what it won't show are the current trends of violence across the world. The volume of school shootings today is like nothing we have ever seen before. In fact, we currently find ourselves in uncharted territory. I'm a big believer that when you are faced with a challenge you have never faced before, you must respond by doing things that you have never done before to solve the problem. I mean, how many more Columbines, Newtown, Connecticut's, Marshall County, Kentucky's, or Marysville, Washington's are we willing to endure before we say enough is enough? For me and our community, not another one. That is why in the immediate aftermath of the horrific attack at Marjory Stoneman Douglas High School, our school board superintendent, Dr. Desmond Blackburn, and I discussed and announced a school security strategy and initiative to help ensure our children, educators, employees, and volunteers have the safest environment possible to teach and learn in. Our strategy was built around the concept of putting a bulletproof vest around our schools that was created using a multi-purposed approach to school security. Now, if you know anything about a bulletproof vest, it's layer after layer after layer of material that when woven together becomes so strong a bullet or edged weapon can't penetrate it. Using that same concept, our team created 4 layers of protection that would provide the strongest measure possible to keep our schools safe. Since the announcement and discussions with the school board for our school security plan, there have been a lot of miscommunications, confusion, and subsequent concerns about the details and specifics of our strategy. So tonight, I want to provide our citizens and community with the exact plan and details of our 4 layers of protection so that everyone is comfortable and well informed on how we intend to do everything possible to protect our schools. While I know there are citizens who oppose specific parts of our plan, I believe in my heart and my 39 years of law enforcement experience that to be effective in protecting our schools, we must take a new approach, one that provides layers of protection so if one layer fails to stop an assailant, an additional layer is in place to protect our most precious of citizens, our children. Our layers of protection are broken down into 4 different areas: education and awareness and STAR program, hardening of facilities, school resource officers, and our STOP concept that allows volunteer Brevard Public Schools employees who are statutorily approved to serve as trained special deputy sheriffs while on our school campuses. Our education and awareness component is designed to make sure that everyone on each of our school campuses knows exactly what to do in the event of an active shooter or other type of critical incident. This layer of protection includes active shooter training for our teachers, staff, students, and volunteers, video-based training and drills that will be conducted quarterly at each school, Operation Speak Out, a program that allows students, parents, and others to anonymously alert law enforcement about safety issues and concerns through a smartphone app, and our newly developed and implemented STAR program. The Success Through Awareness and Restoration program, or STAR as we call it, is designed to serve as a foundation of discipline, intervention, and quite frankly, an attitude adjustment for students who act out and disrupt classrooms where others came to learn. This unique pilot program was initiated this school year to identify those students who are demonstrating concerning behaviors. Rather than remove them from school, they attend what was formerly known as the Alternative Learning Center in the hopes of successfully restoring them so they may return to their schools to become great students. The second layer of our bulletproof vest focuses on hardening our actual school facilities through the development of single-entry access control points, fencing, security cameras, and locking mechanisms to ensure that each of our 4,000 classrooms can be secured from the inside in the event of a critical incident. Layers 3 and 4 of our strategy involve the placement of school resource officers at as many of our schools as possible and the utilization of school guardians or marshals, as we call them, to assist in the protection of our schools and children in the absence of a law enforcement officer. The recently passed Florida Marjory Stoneman Douglas High School Safety Act mandates that each school either has a school resource officer, public school police department officer, or school guardian assigned in order to be in compliance with the new law that was passed by our legislators and subsequently signed into law by Governor Rick Scott. With regards to school resource officers, Brevard County currently has 37 school resource officers for a total of 88 schools. So essentially, we are in need of 51 law enforcement officers to serve each and every school, which creates a significant fiscal challenge to our Brevard Public Schools budget and Brevard County law enforcement agencies. While our state legislature did allocate $97 million for funding law enforcement officers statewide as part of the SRO Safe Schools Act, Brevard County's percentage was nowhere near enough to fund the 88 school resource officers needed to have a minimal of one on every campus. As such, our superintendent and school board members are diligently searching for funding solutions. However, please keep in mind that even if funding were no issue, the recruitment and training of 51 law enforcement officers for this assignment, while also recruiting and hiring the replacement of those experienced officers selected, would take much longer than the 5 months provided by our state legislators, and is also compounded by the months of potential funding discussions on various local levels. Additionally, we are competing with every other law enforcement agency in the state for the same law enforcement candidates, as each county is now facing the same exact challenges during the same exact time period. Now, without question, Layer 4 of our strategy requires the most discussion, as it is a sensitive subject that involves a method of protection that has never been utilized before in the state of Florida. The fourth layer of our strategy is our sheriff-trained on-site Marshal Program that was recently approved by Florida state statute and uses Brevard Public Schools administrators and staff who volunteer to help protect our schools. This assignment, while vital to help protect our schools, is strictly on a voluntary basis and within the guidelines of the Brevard Public Schools Collective Bargaining Agreement. The first thing that I want to clarify is the fact that those who are eligible are not classroom teachers. Our teachers have enough time and responsibility invested in educating, developing, mentoring, and protecting 30 children in a classroom. In fact, currently the Brevard Federated Teachers Union contract and the newly created state law prohibit classroom teachers from being armed during the execution of their duties. So teachers are not in consideration to volunteer for the Marshal Program. As I have told everyone, my first-round draft pick volunteer for this position is an administrator, staff member, or employee who routinely travels around the school's campus and is available during before and after school campus activities. Those chosen for this assignment will be thoroughly vetted and, if approved, will then receive 176 hours of specialized training provided by the Brevard County Sheriff's Office in order to become a certified school guardian or marshal. Since announcing this concept, two of the primary questions I am asked are, how will the volunteers be vetted to make sure the right people are being chosen for this position of great responsibility? And what type of training will each volunteer go through in order to be certified? In order to qualify for the STOMP program, each volunteer must pass through a stringent vetting process that includes oral interview, background check, drug screen, psychological, and an in-depth discussion with the school's principal about the volunteer's perceived level of responsibility and trustworthiness. Pursuant to the vetting process, those chosen to participate in the program will then receive 176 hours of specialized training in the following areas: 80 hours of firearms training that includes 20% more rounds of fire than the current Law Enforcement Academy cadets are required, and a passing firearms qualification score, which also exceeds the requirement of certified law enforcement officers. In addition, the training will include shoot, don't shoot scenarios that are designed to place the trainee in real-life situations where they are forced to make decisions based upon scenarios that have previously occurred during active shooter incidents. Participants will also receive 24 hours of training in tactical auto pistol, utilizing the shooting simulator, as well as firing range applications. 24 hours of the curriculum will be dedicated to tactical combat casualty care, first aid, trauma kit and tourniquets, as well as CPR certification. 16 hours of defensive tactics to include firearm retention, 12 hours focusing on legal issues such as civilian aspects of carrying a concealed firearm, the difference between criminal and civil liability, the difference between misdemeanor and felony offenses, elements of negligence, and elements of assault and battery. And then the last 20 hours of the curriculum will be focused on 12 hours of diversity training and 8 hours of mental health and awareness. Now, while the aforementioned curriculum addresses the initial 176 hours of training, each participant will also be required to complete quarterly training that includes legal updates, firearm proficiency, self-defense and survival tactics, and an additional 16 hours of annual recertification that includes firearms requalification, tactical firearms training, shoot-don't shoot scenarios, and a defensive tactics refresher course. Again, I want to point out that as part of the specialized training curriculum, participants in STOMP will undergo more firearms training than is required of a certified law enforcement officer, and will also be required to maintain a higher scoring of proficiency on the firearms qualification than is required by the Florida Department of Law Enforcement. The goal of this program is to add an additional layer of protection to our schools by using trained and certified special deputies to stand ready to protect our children and themselves in the event of an active shooter scenario. The only law enforcement authority each will have after certification will be the lawful ability to use deadly force in the event of an active shooter or critical incident to protect themselves or others while on a Brevard Public Schools campus. Hopefully tonight's video provides the level of detail that is needed to fully explain our school security strategy and the reason for each layer of protection that has been presented. As I have said to several of our citizens in the past few weeks, it's a sad commentary on society that we have to have these types of conversations, but it's a real commentary and one we must act upon right now to save lives. As always, thank you for your continued support of our agency and for partnering with us to keep Brevard County safe.